Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Justin, and the organizers for inviting me to speak today. And I hope to share with you some of my views in the short 10 minutes that we have on the utilization of telementoring in training. My name is Dr. Nadine Haram. I'm a reconstructive plastic surgeon. And as a surgeon, I've experienced firsthand some of the fundamental challenges that we face in surgery in terms of the variation outcomes, variation care, and variation access. As a surgeon, both in my own health system and traveling to other health systems and working with device companies, I recognize that those challenges really rely on the fact that we're unable to be present in each other's operating rooms as we're supporting each other and scaling new techniques and new devices. And that ultimately, if we think about how we can try and solve this problem, not in an incremental way, but in a more of a disruptive and exponential way, we need to think more broadly about the fundamental components that we are required to be able to deliver high quality mentoring. And that's around communication, connection and connectivity, and ultimately the desire to save lives. And of course, every surgeon has the ambition to do best by their patients and to deliver the best techniques and the most required and indicated cases for their patients. But if we take a look back in history and look at what surgery was like, it was very much reliant on the fundamentals of collaboration, communication, co-presence. And that largely hasn't changed many decades and a century plus later. And we see here on the right, this is an operation about 18 months ago in Texas, demonstrating again the idea that we all have to be co-present in an operating room in order to be able to scale expertise. But I'm sure you'd agree with me that this is a very passive and probably not a very conducive way to ensuring the scaling of expertise, mentoring, and ensuring that good quality care is being delivered thereafter to patients in their operating rooms. And of course, this challenge of variation care is a global challenge. It's not just a challenge of a part of the world, but the whole world. And we know globally that 5 billion people lack access to safe surgery. But as we look to the numbers within our own health systems, we know, for example, in the UK, that you're 14 times more likely to suffer complications following colorectal surgery between one hospital and another. And in other parts of Europe, such as Sweden, you're 36 times more likely to suffer complications following cataract procedure. These are all published numbers. In the US, you're 3 times more likely to die from the lower performing hospitals than the higher performing hospitals. And this kind of idea that quite simply where you live can determine if you live is something we need to change. And it's something we have to change collectively by trying to think of ways where we can crowdsource our expertise and deliver a better way of reducing variation care and ensuring that quality care is delivered to every patient the first time, every time. As for many of the surgeons on this call, it's very much understanding how do we move from a very siloed model of see one, do one, teach one, to a much more connected model of prepare, perform, and perfect. Imagine a world where this was no longer siloed and analog, but this was all digitized. So as we prepare for cases, we perform cases, and we perfect cases, there's a digital footprint for each of that. The ability to dial into a case anywhere in the world, to be able to interact with surgeons, key opinion leaders, or thought leaders in particular procedures. The ability to then perform those cases by having telementoring as a solution, to have those experts or those advisors, those mentors that you've worked with in the past be able to dial in and support you through those first few cases, reducing the learning curve, reducing the chances of complication, ensuring high quality care to patients. And ultimately, if every single interaction is tagged and stored in a library, how great would it be to be able to go back and review that digital logbook, that video logbook that allows you to review it on your own or with peers in a collaborative review, get feedback, think of ways to improve for the next steps, or perhaps use as a model for accreditation and validation of skill set. I'd like to share with you this video, which we really put together as an analogy to athletics. And I think the work that Atul Gawande wrote about in the New Yorker, but of course the great work that Caprice Greenberg also did in Wisconsin, really resonates here when we think about the athletics industry and how that relates to the surgical industry.
Technology is changing our pursuit. It's evolving before our eyes, creating endless possibilities. Just look at the world of sport, the modern quarterback, the new age domestique, the pre-game plan, the post-game review. Every angle, every possibility, every inch. Watched, reviewed, understood, applied. What about the clinical world? At Proximy, we enable clinicians to virtually scrub in and collaborate with each other from anywhere in the world. allowing any clinician to prepare.
What I tend to use is a horizontal incision
to perform.
Everything is about triangles and the proper planes of dissection. So the top of your triangle is where you're going to come across.
And perfect their craft.
Question there?
Yeah, Ben, I wondered if you make a comment as to how you pitch that. Is it such that the labrum is flushed so that preparation's on?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, John.
Pre, during, after. Think of us as your game tape. Start your pursuit today. Plug in Proximy. Connect clinicians. Save lives.
And this is, of course, there's enough robust and real-world data that can show evidence to this. We know that telementoring is evidence in multiple publications around its value in democratizing access to surgery, its value in providing cost-effective mentoring, in improving patient safety, in safely adopting new techniques. A paper recently published showed that the use of Proximy as a telementoring tool was equivalent to having a rep or a mentor in the room with you. And of course, in bolstering infection control measures, which is ever more pertinent now in this new world, this COVID world, and this new normal that we're facing. And the applications of telementoring are broad. It's live remote preceptorship, being able to dial in to review and watch cases by key opinion leaders and leading surgeons, but also remote proctorship, where now those mentors are able to dial into your operating room and guide and support you through those cases. And the video demonstrated that to some extent. Of course, this is also important for live remote support when you think about rep support and medical device support. But ultimately, when we think about our health systems, this can play a role also in expanding service capacity. Providing that telementoring across a service or a hub and spoke health system can provide value across the chain. And we've seen this in action locally, regionally, globally, and through medical device education and R&D. At a local level, this is being adopted by programs, and we're doing some work now for registrar training and due to launch some pilots around that with the Royal College of Surgeons. Regionally, we've worked with ACID and partnered with the largest society of surgical training, making sure that every UK trainee has access to this platform, involved in weekly live surgical and surgical review events. More globally, we've partnered with SAGES on their ventral hernia course, where mentors are able to dial into surgeons' homes as they're doing ventral training, and hyperarthroscopy with ISHA, connecting surgeons together to do collaborative review on surgical cases, as you've seen on the video. With medical device education, we've supported the medical device industry largely across all geographies in 35 plus countries, accelerating product adoption and revenue acquisition, improving access to experts globally, and the virtual in-field rep support. And finally, giving the R&D teams at these device companies a lens into how these devices are being used and how they can perhaps modify or adapt them accordingly. Communication has to be more than a moment in time. It has to be very much making sure that we can go back and benefit from those videos that are recorded, that video logbook, that richness of that diverse data set that can give us insights into how we can improve the quality of care that we deliver and the surgery that we need to deliver to our patients. And learnings that we can think that may impact procedures, techniques, and for future decisions around that as well. And there's some great speakers on the panel today who I'm sure will be speaking on this as well. It's really ultimately about digitizing the global operating room. And to date, we've been used in over 150 sites, due to be in about 300 by the end of this year. We've done over 6,000 procedures, nearing close to 700 a month now. And we've saved over 1 million miles in carbon footprint in Q4 alone. And so what I'm here to share with you is that the concept of telementoring and telementoring through the work we've done at Proximy is proven. I've shown you evidence previously on the concept of telementoring, and here I'm here to share with you evidence again on Proximy's use case within that, where we've shown evidence around the benefit of connecting experts, performing novel procedures, enabling skill transfer through the use of this solution, coaching the next generation through telementoring and teleproctoring, and meeting the COVID-19 challenges, which are, of course, happening as we speak. And our solution has continued to drive value and benefit to patients by allowing us to connect surgeons from all around the world to work together. Our use cases are diverse, from cardiology, orthopedics, and plastics to head and neck, colorectal, and urology. And some of you on this call will be familiar with the case that we did recently with Dr. Jim Porter in Seattle, who was able to dial in with Dr. Archie Fernando and Guys. I'd love if I had more time to walk you through the story, but due to the limited time, please reach out and I'm happy to share more detail. But the great thing about this is together these surgeons were able to deliver a life-saving operation to Mo, a patient who was able to go home at day 3 and was on Sky News giving an interview 7 days later. And it's incredible the human impact and the benefit that telementoring continues to deliver day in, day out. As she described, it was like having a coach in the wings, and it really alludes to the concept of the surgical coach and the coaching that has been previously discussed. Of course, what's also valuable is the ability to overlay anatomical images and diagrams. And as you're working through that telementoring session, it's really important to be able to do that, to be able to bring important anatomical landmarks to help demonstrate the next steps in a procedure and the importance of taking good care of those landmarks as you're working through those dissections. And being able to see that on a live case is really critical. It's as if you're sitting in a control room, seeing everything that's going on in an operating room from multiple different angles and multiple different views without any delay, no latency, and low bandwidth requirement is really critical to be able to scale these solutions. And it's something that we've been able to do as I showed you the numbers before. I want to end with a personal story. This is a 55-year-old patient. She had years of complications following a laparotomy that didn't go to plan. She was unfortunately left with a very complex abdominal wall hernia. This was obstructing her quality of life to the point that she had reached an element of desperation. She reached out to us and asked if, through proximity, she could remain local, have her local surgeon deliver the care that she needs, but have a mentor or a coach dial in because of the complexity of this case, and have someone who'd seen a lot more of these cases support her local surgeon who she trusted vehemently. Together, they performed this case. The patient went home a week later and has resumed a normal quality of life and can do all the things that a woman of her age should be doing, and is very happy with the result and the benefits the Proximi gave to her. And that patient is my mother. And I think what's important here to demonstrate the ultimate litmus test, and if you're willing to use telementoring as a solution for your own mother, then you're definitely willing to put your patients through it too. I'm happy to share this personal story with all of you because I know it will resonate with some of you in terms of the impact and value of telementoring. And I want to thank you all for the time. Please do reach out if you want any more information. I know 10 minutes is a tight time to share all my views on the subject, but happy to do so in the future as well. Thank you very much.